So this Richard Dawkins, he's some evolutionary biologist, yes, one of these science people. I would love to take him on. I would. His type I would love to take on. I would wipe the floor with him. I would. So this is one of his many books. Yeah, so and this is one of his other books. I think this is his most recent book. The God Delusion. Yeah. That's why I would wipe the floor with him in, I would say, less than an hour, maybe 30 minutes of all of his arguments. Because what is his arguments, the evolutionary biologist himself? Well, the evidence shows, yeah? What evidence? So your evidence is a spreadsheet or some graph, or because the media says it, and I'm supposed to believe it, right? See, this is where the game gets played. It's the game. So, like, we know evidence that if you have a flame burning on your stove and you touch it, yeah, you're going to get burned. Like, we know that evidence. But all this stuff about genes and DNA, and I'm not saying some of it isn't true. What I'm trying to say is that it's an expectation in this world that when Fauci, the science himself, or any of these experts get on the news and say, well, we know that, the Harvard people, all the Ivy League, that we know this because our research, and it's like, yeah, but I don't see that research. I just see a piece of paper and the news tells me, and because and I see what you guys are all going along with, like your social justice plans, like that has nothing to do with evidence right now in healthcare, and it's like, yeah, so it really is a bad reflection on all of you. But here's the evidence I'm going to give you for why these people, I would wipe the floor with them and all of the science. Yeah, I'm actually saying that. Because since 1939 or 40, since the time that Alcoholics Anonymous has been around, all of the science has either ripped, made insinuations, come up with the shittiest theories about Alcoholics Anonymous, and yet the evidence for God is in the millions around the world that have recovered through it. You won't hear alcoholics, you don't see commercials for Alcoholics Anonymous because they won't advertise. They don't. They have 12 steps and they have 12 traditions. And their traditions say they cannot advertise because they are not about promoting. They only survive through they get no government money. They survive because everyone works for free pretty much, except for like their New York, like a few of the people that operate and keep like the traditions in place, because the traditions do not want to attract people. They're not about promotion. Attraction, yes, if a place for somebody to come that's struggling with addiction. However, they're not about promotion. They do not promote themselves. That's why in their whole history you may have seen late at night an ad on TV for some recovery home or recovery place that will say in it that but they're not even supposed to do that they use the 12 steps, because it's a strict tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous. They have others too. They will not promote. You never hear radio, nothing about the 12 steps. You'll hear about you can go into recovery or whatever, but that's it. Not the 12 steps. So I know just from knowing the program and being around it 30 years, okay, and heavily involved, that there are millions and millions around the world that have had a spiritual awakening and were saved from the pits of addiction, okay? The science doesn't like it. That is evidence. That is evidence. Yet you will hear people, and I swear this is so like just designed. Excuse me here. It's so designed, like when you get some people that are recovering on Joe Rogan or whatever show, okay? They'll talk about, yeah, it really helped going to the meetings and being around other people. Well, that's if you're an atheist. That's why they say use the group as a higher power. Because if you keep with it, you're going to find out, no, I'm not an atheist anymore. There's a real higher power. But they never get to that point. It's always just about these meetings. And then you'll read some of this ridiculous science papers on it, and they stay away from the God. The God part is the key to it. Because, and they never mention, or maybe there could be a paper out there that's mentioned it, who knows, that the spiritual, but if there was more known about this, then people in mental health would know it. There's nobody I've ever worked with that knows this. They don't know that millions around the world have recovered, not because of AA, not because of the meetings themselves, but because doing the step, it causes a result in it, if you're honest and forthright about it, is a spiritual awakening. Just is. And yet that's millions around the world. How can you not call that evidence? So that's why all of their arguments, these evolutionary biologists. And so Dawkins suggests that religious belief in the faith sufferer, No, I feel bad for some of these. Not really. I'd rather just wipe the floor with them because of their hoity-toity, yes, science knows best. Yeah, Jesus warned about you people. Not that you're evil necessarily, but you're like the Pharisees I've talked about. You're so filled with your science and yourself that you placed yourself on some pedestal of being God, and then you go around the world and fight with people about how there's not a God, and it's like you make a fool out of yourself. And yet people in science and in the Ivy League universities, not a good place in my opinion, but want to believe you, because you have all the education. No, if the science was really legit, they wouldn't, since 1939, have disregarded the evidence of the spiritual condition of the alcoholic. They don't address it. And you want to know why they don't address it? It's very simple. It's because it goes against everything they stand for. I tell you, if the science had worked in conjunction with the true creator of everything, we would not have war. We would live in an actually good society. But instead, we've had so many scientists that have come along and have gone out of their way to act like God's a delusion. And what they do is they delude themselves. So he said, religious belief, and I don't agree with religion. I agree in the Bible. So I'm just saying, but I don't have anything against the different denominations of Christianity. The problem is it's just caused more confusion in the world. So he said, the faith sufferer typically shows the following elements. One, it is impelled by some deep inner conviction that something is true or right or virtuous, a conviction that doesn't seem to owe anything to evidence. Excuse me, I just gave the evidence. You and your science want to ignore it. You've continued to ignore it. Or reason. Does it seem reasonable, seriously, people, does it seem reasonable to believe man of this world? And you're basing it all because of what college they went to, or how many letters they have after their name, or because they want to tell you when they're on TV, well, we know this evidence. Have you seen it yourself? Does that seem reasonable? No. But which nevertheless the believer feels is totally compelling and convincing. No, I just gave evidence and reason. The science itself has ignored since 1939 that there's evidence for God in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's because the science doesn't want there to be a God, because if they told you that, you might not depend on them for everything. The believer typically makes a positive virtue of faith's being strong and unshakable despite it not being based upon evidence. See, it's all about evidence. Yet, Richard Dawkins and every scientist on this planet, what is your evidence? Because you learned it from some professor. You learned it, it was passed down, whatever. That's your evidence. But you've never gone on the journey like any recovering addict or alcoholic. No, you haven't. You haven't found the true scientists. So until you find the true scientist, well, you just keep making a fool out of yourself.